Hey, what's going on? Hey, so I'm in the process of like always, I'm going through and cleaning stuff. Anyway, it's Memorial Day, 2022, and I found this Life magazine, and this is the Life magazine from Memorial Day, 1960. Well, it's not. It's from June 27th, 1969, but it's a Memorial Day issue. It came from Mr. J. Parlanti in Redwood City, California. So what this is, see, look what it says right there: the faces of the American dead in Vietnam, 1 week's toll. And so inside this issue, there's 1 week's dead in Vietnam. So there's 242 men here that were killed in Vietnam from May 23rd through June 3rd, 1969, the span of the week of Memorial Day. And it says right here, you could pause this and read it. It says that this is not a significant. This is an average number of weekly men killed in action at this point of the war. So let's look at this because for a lot of reasons. Let's look at these pictures for a lot of reasons. So let's take a look. Michael Volheim. This could take a while. I thought about this. These pictures are great, and this moment is possibly very useful. So let's really do this. It could take a while, but I'm not going to read hometowns or ages or ranks or branches of service. I'm just going to give guys names, and we're just going to look at their faces. This is Michael Volheim, Robert Lehman, William Alexander, Robert Rosenau, Craig Yates, John Pape, Gary Wallace, David Tesmer, Valentine Dwornik, Mario Lamelza, James P. Hickey, Roy E. Clark. It could be possible that I could be reading your neighbor's son's name, or your father, or your cousin, or your uncle. Cleveland Browning, Charles Fleek, an operator, James Patrick Francis, Joe E. Bragg, William C. Gearing Jr., he's on the cover, from Rochester, Gary D. Carter, Bruce Saunders, Ralph Mears Jr., paratrooper, Mark Haverland Jr., Robert Reed, Winston Smith, and Matthew Lozano, another paratrooper from San Antonio. Philip Strout, John Gillen, Edward O'Donovan, Michael Melton, Melvin Green Jr., Henry Houseman Jr., Robert Randall, David Bukowski, John John Volmerhausen Jr. We just called him Alphabet at Basic. David Hargens, John McCarthy, Dwayne Bowen, Richard Dubois, John Rosemond, Matthew Borley, William Anderson, Joseph Rhodes, Keith Jenke, John Kirchner, Gary Fassel. Most of us have never heard these names or seen these guys before, but they made the ultimate sacrifice. And we're really lucky and fortunate to have the opportunity that this magazine, this Life magazine, I don't know much about this magazine politically, but they did something good here. They preserved all these guys. David Mills, Ramon Vasquez Nieves, Carl Martin, Daniel Pucci, Howard Clark Jr., Hal Clark Jr., Andrew Rice Jr., Burl Bailey, Charles Smith Jr., Robert Carter Jr., Stephen McCarville, James Boston Jr., Robert Getz, Richard Patterson, William Evans, Jackie Bass, David Mann, Jose Galarza Quinones, Scott Saylor, Clifford Haynes Jr., and Thomas Jackson Jr. Calvin Patrick, Michael May, Fred Kaufman, Freddie Lee Kaufman, Milton Johnson, Ofri Irvin, Larry Mullen, James Wright, William Olson, Robert Rose, Michael Dixon, Terry Clark, Warren Nix, Kenneth Pettigrew, David Ewing, Edward Kieskowski, Ralph Vitch, Thomas Barth from Lakewood, Clarence Taylor, Gary Never, Thomas Myers, Patrick Haggerty, Albert Cartledge III, James Drew, Peter Borsey, Robert Yates, Jimmy Phipps, Curtis Breedlove, Forrest Smith, Isaac Sapp, David Tiffany from Riverside, Clovis May, Thomas Bliss, Gary Guest, Calvin Cooper, William Smith, Gary Clodfelter, Barry Unfried, Rudy Carnley, Ron Morgan from San Diego, and Henry MacArthur. Kind of getting choked up. Here's a guy from my hometown. This is Dennis Babcock. Johnny Brigman, Donald Devers, Doug Summer, Joe Conkle, Clarence Craighead, Keith Kalsdorf, excuse me, that's Mike Powell, Byron Bowden, Chris Pyle, excuse me, Gary McCullough, Albert Nelson Jr., Robert Pitts, Joseph Chisholm, Patrick Dixon, Charles Jones, Emmett Davis, Russell Evans, Jeffrey Richardson, Elmer Fields, John Platt, Chris Martinez, James Leonard, Michael Hatzel, Iron Brown, or Iran Brown, I don't know. Charles Irvin, James Titmus III, William Thornhill, John Randall, Max Lisenby, Howard Hill, Gerald Poston, William Siegel, Robert Sibilia. I got that right? Robert Sibilia. Gail Sanderson, Donnie Lawson, Virgil Hamilton, Tim Foster, Ralford Jackson, Thomas Hayes. David Kinney, Ernest Munoz, Cordell B. Rogers, Larry Boyer. I knew a Larry Boyer. Ronald Brown, Edison Phillips, Gary Towell, Doug Matheson, Santiago Quintana, Charles Hilbert, Billy Pettis, Chris Holliday, Orville Hampton, James Troy Ralph, Robert Anderson, Merlin Labor, Gary Grubbs, Marvin Briss, Floyd Barber, John Winters, John Homan, Gordon Perry, James Weiss, Robert Bensberg, Ken Seward, William Darden, Jan Reichkolb, Steve Owen, John Abbott, and William Peterson. Errol Pereira, Yvonne Gerard, Ralph Crowley, William Beskey Jr., Wayne Garvin, Ron Yashak, Milford Cobb, Donald Seberg Jr., James Columbero, and Edward Frowner. Harold James Wormsley, Alan Graff, Robert Siegholtz Jr., Ed Clennon, Billy Thomas, Darrell Price Jr., James Clark, Philip Gamble Jr., Scott Cochran, Farrell J. Weiss, Emerson Martin, Ewan Parker, Stephen Murray, Stephen Sprinkle, and Richard Brumfield. James Johnson, Kenneth Shopes, Joey Bowles, Bobby Newby, Thomas Painter, Terry Miller, Herman Judy Jr., James Hebert III, Willie Kirkland, Robert Boise or Bose, Dick Whitney, Jim Walters, Tom Nebel or Nebel, Gary Layton, Gary Paul, Donald Ide, Michael Gerber, and James Hilliard in Kalamazoo, Michigan. That's the pictures that are in here for Memorial Day, 1969. I hope I did okay. I kind of got choked up. You know what? The mistake that I made is that when I was reading all these guys' names, the mistake I made is I started looking at their pictures, and it made me choke up and made tears start to come out of my eyes. So I had to shift it up, and I had to switch it up and not look at their pictures at all. Instead, I just read their names for like the last 7 minutes or so, or 10 minutes, I don't even know. But hope you guys enjoyed this video. Yeah, this is a great thing that Life magazine did, isn't it? All right. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you guys later.